Critical Role reveals some huge secrets about the Seeker's Table, D&D announces a new Magic the Gathering set, and Baldur's Gate 3 is getting an HBO show.
It's finally happening!
Before we talk huge Critical Role reveals and Baldur's Gate becoming the next Game of Thrones, why not take a second to hit those like and subscribe buttons to help us keep these videos coming. It only takes a second to click, and it really does help these videos out immensely. And then, let's dive into the news. Critical Role's latest episode shed some light on many huge mysteries as we got some major reveals about the Taconis and Halavar plan, and even the true nature of Occtis himself. In fact, this entire episode largely revolved around Occtis, as Alex Ward could not stop rolling natural 20s, at least 5 of them by our count.
Natural 20.
You gotta be kidding
my
me.
God.
Which you could tell was making Brennan start to reconsider how often he just sort of hands out advantage for no real mechanical reason, and which completely bypassed some massive social encounter pitfalls for the party, and also turned the later fight against Taconis forces into something of a joke. As the rest of the cast, minus Ashley, also suddenly could not stop rolling those nat 20s. We also saw the apparent death of Occtis' brother Franz in combat, who clearly was not supposed to be one of the Taconis siblings at the start of the combat until Brennan asked Alex who he was and who he saw, and Alex basically retconned him into being his brother Franz on the spot. You could tell because the Taconis siblings were all supposed to be these powerful necromantic sorcerers, and this supposed Franz just swung a sword a few times and got completely destroyed by Julian, giving him some measure of revenge for the massacre of his father and his house. But perhaps most importantly, given his insane roles in social situations, we uncovered more about the true nature of Occtis and what he really is. And it does appear that House Taconis, who act as spirit guides or psychopomps for humanity, are trying to turn their least valuable son into the new Nightingale by placing the Stone of the Night Song inside him and using his actual heart to control him. As the Nightingale was used to ferry elven souls into the realm of their Shaper God, with Occtis as a controlled puppet version of a new Nightingale, the Taconis could then gain access to the divine realm of the now dead elven Shaper God themselves with their army of spirits and undead. So the question becomes, what would they do once they've taken over this divine realm, and how much power would they then wield? We also got to meet Tyranny's sisters and found out that disguising yourself as Occtis is apparently genetic. And unlike the hapless Franz, Occtis' twin sisters arrived and scared the absolute shit out of everyone who fled after the battle. So now we have a semi-undead potential gate to the divine realms walking around Ahriman, and we know that his family and the Halavars will stop at nothing to get a hold of him and complete that ritual. And it's hard to imagine anywhere safe for the Seekers to go when the next episode kicks off.
Yes, go, real!
Dungeons & Dragons is dropping a new Secret Lair Magic the Gathering set focused mainly on Baldur's Gate 3, with characters like Gale and Shadowheart getting their own mini drops of 5 cards each. There are also even smaller 4-card sets featuring cool blacklight art-inspired cards and more Baldur's Gate-inspired monsters, all of which are being sold for $30 or $40 if you want the foil version of the cards. If you really want to spend some cash, you can buy all 7 Secret Lair sets of the new D&D drop for $200, or $270 if you want it all in foil. While it's not a full playable set like the Forgotten Realms release that hit D&D a few years back, we imagine a lot of fans will want to get their hands on the Shadowheart and Curse of Strahd drops in particular, so make sure you join the online queue on Wizards of the Coast webpage before the drop goes live at 9 AM Pacific on February 9th for a chance to get your hands on these new cards. And speaking of Baldur's Gate 3, the award-winning RPG is getting the full Game of Thrones treatment, as Deadline reports that HBO itself will be looking to turn the hit video game into a full TV series, with Craig Mazin, the co-creator of The Last of Us, acting as showrunner and writer for the show, with Darrington Studios' own Chris Perkins acting as a consultant. This new HBO series will act as a sequel to the events of Baldur's Gate 3 and not a retelling of the game's story, and will feature both the much-loved Baldur's Gate 3 cast along with some brand new characters. While Larian Studios is not currently involved in the creation of the show, studio head Sven Vinke did say that Mazin asked to stop by and speak with the Larian staff, and that he appears to be a big fan of the game, which gave him hope. For his part, Mazin says that he's put in over 1,000 hours into his personal playthrough of Baldur's Gate 3, and that as a devoted fan of D&D and the Baldur's Gate 3 video game itself, he's going to do everything he can to honor and respect those characters in his upcoming show. No word yet if any of the iconic video game cast will be able to reprise their roles, like Neil Newbon playing Astarion, but with a huge name like Craig Mazin and the HBO production machine behind it, we cannot wait for our first look at this live-action version of Baldur's Gate 3 once production begins sometime in the very near future. And that's all the time we have for this week. Let us know what your favorite story from the week was down in the comment section, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.